She had no reason to be depressed either, given how spoiled she was. And whose fault would that be? Ha! I think you're lying. We're looking from the outside in, but we're like, man, I know exactly what you're up to. I said I do love my biological child more than you, but I love her deeply.
You what?
Red flag! So hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Jessica Layla, and let me ask you but one question. Do you have a family? You're not answering that, are you? Yeah, so today we're going to be reading some Reddit relationship stories, but family edition. I think we've done this once, like, way back in December of last year. So I thought it was time to bring it back, because there's always some crazy family situations out there. Now, family is kind of a broad term, so I've kind of made it to be siblings, parents, step-parents, people who have had children together, stuff like that. Now my go-to for the really crazy toxic ones is this page on Instagram called Toxic Reddit. They post a lot of crazy Reddit stories and they will be linked down below if you want to go follow them. They're my favorite page ever. So yeah, we're gonna be delving into some pretty crazy familial drama. So everyone, what I want you to do is to grab your snacks, grab your drinks, get all comfy cozy, and let's just dive right in with the first post. How do I get my 35 male stepdaughter, 14 female, to talk to me? I've been in my stepdaughter's life for 8 years. I love her dearly. Her dad has been missing in action, unfortunately, and is not a good person. So I'm the father figure in her life. She calls me dad and everything. I go to all her dance events and her clarinet stuff. Recently, my wife and I had a daughter. It's my first kid that is mine, and I love her dearly, and love being a dad. I want 2 more, lol, but gotta convince the wifey. I had my friend over for dinner, and at dinner, they asked how was having a newborn. I told him amazing, that I never realized I could love something so much. That I love her more than anything in the world. Even more than my wife, but it's close. I wasn't thinking, but everyone got quiet, and I realized why now. So, fast forward a few days later, my stepdaughter asked me if I loved her. I was taken aback and said, of course. She brought up my comment at dinner and said that it made her feel like I love my biological kid more than her. I told her the truth because I thought she was mature enough to handle it, but she didn't. There's a red flag. I said I do love my biological child more than you, but I love her deeply.
You what?
Red flag! I told her that she would understand when she has her own kids, but there's just something about seeing a child that's yours. She just got quiet and said she had to do homework, but I don't think she handled it well. She's been ignoring me and everything. She well passively talked to me, but I asked her if she wants to get food when I picked her up from practice today, and she said no. It's stuff like that. I just get one-word answers from her. Wow, good luck repairing your relationship. You messed up big time. What was I supposed to do? She put me in a terrible position. Either lie or tell the truth. Lie, for frick's sake. She's a 14-year-old kid and you just told her you don't love her as much as her sibling. There's a good chance your relationship will never recover from this. You have hurt her deeply. I cannot believe that you did that. Your relationship may never be the same. I was out in a difficult position with her asking that. It was either lie or tell the truth, but I do love her deeply, and that's the important thing. No, the important thing here is that you crushed her spirit and likely broke her heart by telling her she's always second place in your eyes. White lies exist precisely for moments like these. Knowing her abandonment issues with her father makes this a callous and unfathomably stupid thing to say. It all went south with the, it's the first kid that's mine. Dude, she calls you dad. You're the only dad she's known. She's your first kid, that's yours. Cool. Now she's had 2 dads tell her she's not enough. She put me in a terrible position, said the grown-ass man album a young teenager. Even if in the deepest parts of your heart and soul you feel like you love one child more than the other because one is biologically yours, there's this little thing called not having to tell the truth. That is cruel, to have been honest. So first of all, this is a child you're dealing with, okay? Baby girl is 14 years old. Now imagine the father figure in your life for the past 8 years is like, well, I don't really love you as much as I love my biological child, but you're okay, I guess. That is not something that you can just recover from. There was literally no reason for him to admit the truth here. I just think that was possibly the nastiest thing you could have done. And then in this whole comment section, he's just defending himself and being like, what was I supposed to do? She put me in a terrible position. No, she didn't. The 14-year-old child did not put you in a terrible position. You put you in a terrible position. Like, saying you love her and more than anything in the world, even more than your wife, you could have course corrected when your stepdaughter asked you for clarification and be like, I misspoke. I just mean that there's an outpouring of love for this new child that I didn't expect. You didn't have to say, I love my other kid more than you because it's my biological child. I can't imagine raising someone for 8 years, especially through like the most fundamental years of their life of who they're gonna become, and then not feeling close and feeling like a father to them in the same way that you feel a father to the biological child. That's just crazy. Okay, that's just wild. And then he's pinning all the blame on the 14-year-old. Anyways, on to the next one. Dad, 49 male, remarried. Wife, 35 female, accusing me of being nosy. Background, my dad, 49 male, recently got married, 36 female. It's been 4 months now. The story. I had a stomachache from something I ate. My dad always told me if I needed something at night to text him or call him, or if needed to, knock on their bedroom door. They have a mini pharmacy in their room and not elsewhere, because there were other kids in the house. At around 1 a.m., I went to make myself tea, hoping that it would calm my stomach down, but the pain became more uncomfortable. It then became 2 a.m. I heard a blow dryer from their room, so I thought they were awake and thought it would be quicker and faster to just knock on the door and get a painkiller. His wife answered and she was in a bathrobe. You can understand what I mean by saying that. Naked? Lingerie? Bra? I thought it was too late to turn around now, so I asked for a pill. She opened the door of their room and walked in, and I assumed it was fine to walk in too. My hands were shaky when I took one pill out, so it fell on the floor, so I took another one and walked out. I woke up this morning and my dad was angry. His wife is accusing me of pretending to be sick to see inside their room, that I pretended to take a pill and threw it on the ground, that I walked in uninvited and looked around the room, how they're shocked that this behavior would come out of an 18-year-old female, and that I should have never knocked on the door of a newly married couple. Before my parents separated, they weren't living like every other couple. They were living like roommates, so my sister and I would just walk in and out or knock on the door, so there are new things that I'm learning from this marriage, like what the boundaries are. Consider me naive with this stuff. As for why I didn't call or text, I don't know, it didn't pop into my head. I thought they were still awake and that knocking would be faster. My dad is already telling me that he's tried defending me so many times in front of his wife because of my mood swings. They're stress related. And that I ruined the picture that he has tried painting of me in front of his wife, and how she could start acting petty now and treat me badly if I keep doing this as if I'd done it on purpose. Wow, this wife sounds like a real charmer. Not. I feel like it's not fair, because if it was her daughter knocking on the door, it wouldn't have brought the same response or reaction. I am thinking of talking to her directly and explain my point of view without my dad being the mediator or the defender. I also find it unfair that all of this is being unloaded onto me when the wife has a history of being inappropriate, wearing lingerie around the house, touching my dad inappropriately in shared spaces, making freaky jokes, being extremely loud during intimacy. And I was asked during that time to be understanding because it's the honeymoon phase, and it will die down. I feel like the weight of what I did might have been inconvenient or uncomfortable, given the timing of when I knocked, but doesn't deserve such a response. The environment in the house right now is tense, and it's because of me? Update! So I sat down and spoke to her, said that I didn't mean to invade a moment where you might have felt vulnerable and into a space that was just yours. I didn't have any ill intention or goal behind knocking the door and was simply naive, and thought it would be fine since we are family, and I needed something urgent. Your relationship is not just new to me, but the way your relationship is different from my parents. So I'm learning as I go, and you won't see such behavior from me again. Now her response was, she laughed and said she didn't care about this kind of stuff, and that if she focuses on minor mistakes that I do like knocking on doors or being moody, then that will create unnecessary problems in the household, and revealed that my dad was actually the very angry one, and she had to calm him down. She said we are a family, and even families fight, and that we are going to live together for a very long time, so it's important that we get along very well. She also told me not to think about it, and it's nothing. Now I don't know what to think or how to react. Who's throwing who under the bus? When your dad marries someone 15 years younger, you got your answer. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't really like parents who act like they can just do kind of whatever they want simply because they're the parents. Being kind of weird around your kids, having this completely new dynamic that everybody has to adjust to, like, it's this whole thing. And then to assume the absolute worst about the original poster, wanting to look in their room and snoop and peek around and whatever else, what other stupid crap they were saying. I don't know many 18-year-olds, or really anyone, who would be curious as to, like, the details of something a little more intimate. I think whether it was the stepmother or the father or a combination of both, they overreacted. I don't know who actually is the overreactor in this situation, but the way the father is acting makes me a little bit suspicious. And see, this is an age gap where I'm like, it doesn't really matter by this point, you know? The stepmother wearing lingerie around the house, touching her dad inappropriately in shared spaces, making creepy jokes, being extremely loud during intimacy, like, there is a new dynamic at play that they should not be able to just say, well, that's the way it is, it's the honeymoon phase, so you better get used to it. And then to get really mad at the original poster for knocking on the door to get a painkiller, like, I don't know who's in the wrong here, but it's not the original poster, in my opinion, because they were simply just trying to get a pain pill, as they have explained. Maybe they left something out. I don't know. It's kind of a weird situation, kind of some weird people involved. I don't really like the stepmother or how she's acting in this situation, and I think that the father is also acting inappropriately. And I think that the father is also acting inappropriately. You have your children in the house. Like, you're living in another space with other people. How are you gonna act like they're the problem? Anyways, on to the next one. What is the best way for me, 39 male, to reach out to my son, 17 male? A long time ago, I made a very irresponsible choice and got my child's mother pregnant at a very young age. I knew I was not ready to be a parent physically, mentally, or financially. We came up to a deal where I gave her a one-time check from the savings my parents had given me, and I would sign away all rights and responsibilities. Now my parents are still in my son's life and see him often, and I eventually got married and had a kid of my own. My daughter is my precious jewel. Recently, I was talking to my dad and found out my son is a high school football star and is getting recruited by D1 schools. Mostly FCS, but still, that's amazing. I have no idea what we're talking about. I really don't. I wish he had said something earlier. As my son enters his senior year, I want him to have a big year, so maybe he get recruited by bigger schools. My dad is being weird about arranging a hangout / giving me my son's number, so I'm thinking of reaching out directly. I couldn't find him on Facebook, but found his Instagram, just waiting for him to accept my request. Were you intending to meet him before you found out about his football prospects? All of a sudden you're thinking about your son? You sold him! You paid money so that you don't have to be a parent to him and could be rid of him. You were not his parent. Leave that child alone. 39 minus 17, 22, very young? You ignored him for 17 years and want to see him because he plays a sport you like. Give the kid some credit that he will see through this hollow attempt to reconcile. Your father clearly does. It's funny how you were fine having no relationship with your son all these years, but now you want a participation trophy for his success? Girl, get the frick out, lol. Y'all need to stop giving this guy a hard time for calling 22 a very young age. Even now, he's still just a child of only 39 years. Finally have a kid of my own is a crazy sentence in a post about trying to reconnect with your son because you want to cash in on his football star potential. All I'm seeing is red. Red, red, red. 22, I will say, from my perspective, that is pretty difficult to imagine being put together enough at 22 to be a parent. But man's basically at 22 was like, peace out. Here's a check from my parents' savings, and now you want to be involved in his life? Like, we don't have enough information about the before, to be fair, but it's weird that you only want to be involved in his life now that you know what a star this boy is. So for 17 years, you have not reached out, you have not contacted him. From what I'm inferring about this post, you have not been a parent to him, so you're in essence a complete stranger to him. And then the original poster's dad being so weird about arranging, and weird is in quotation marks, about arranging a hangout or giving the son's number tells me that there's a lot more to the situation and that the dad is seeing through some BS. Just like we are. We're looking from the outside in, but we're like, man, I know exactly what you're up to. Yeah, so I just find the timing of this weird. It's the fact that he's getting recruited, and now you want to be in his life. Then I'm like, yeah, I think the other commenter is right. You want to cash in on his football star potential. You can't claim the role of parent if you had nothing to do with the raising of this person, or literally anything to do with their life until the age of 17. And I think that's very strange of a thing to do. I also don't think 22 is technically a qualifier for too young. Like, obviously, not everybody is ready for parenthood at any age, but 22 does not feel, like, very young to me. And then they're also right in pointing out the way that you are describing your other child. And had a kid of my own. You did have a kid of your own, you just decided not to be in your son's life. So you did have a child. It's out there. That son, that boy's doing things, you just chose not to be a parent to him. That's just my take on it. I don't know where we ended up, but I don't realistically see the kid being like, yeah, let's hang out and talk about life. Anyways, on to the next one. My son's father, 39 male, thinks him and I, 29 female, should be together. I'm engaged and not interested. What to do now? My son's father and I broke up when I was pregnant. He was absolutely awful. Cheated non-stop, mentally, and became physically abusive. I was young and very dumb, but left when I was about 2 months pregnant. We hated each other for the entire pregnancy and toddler years. I did everything myself. Worked, gave birth alone. Took care of a newborn with no help. I turned to mom groups for advice. I did family court, etc. I started to figure life out on my own as a single mother. I stayed single while my ex dated every woman he can find. I grew up a lot, took care of myself physically and mentally. A year and a half ago, I met my fiancé. He is so patient, kind, handsome, loving. Just everything I waited for to find in a man. My ex and I started to become friends a year ago. We started doing things together with our son. We got along better as co-parents than we ever have. My fiancé helped me mature and move past my traumas. I went from being a single mother who's always been working since I was 15 to now a stay-at-home mom. I'm happier, healthier, definitely more mature, and a loving mother and future wife. My ex noticed my shift and is now obsessed with getting back together. He said he didn't see my potential back then, but he sees how much I've grown and thinks I should leave my fiancé for him. I laughed in his face because I thought maybe he was joking. Past 3 weeks, he's been blowing up my phone saying we should be together for our son, or our son will end up in prison if he doesn't have his parents together. I told him straightforward I have zero interest in him in any romantic or any other way. He refused to take my responses. I began ignoring him, but he starts texting about our son, I reply, and then he's back to the same old stupid delusional comments. My fiancé knows. We are both fed up with him at this point. He's even started to try to drop our son off Sunday nights. He knows Sunday are the days my fiancé goes to see his son. Last Sunday I gave in because I miss my son, and he tried to get me to let him in knowing my fiancé was not home. I slammed the door in his face. Each day goes back, I get extremely pissed that he think I would ever go back to that terrible, miserable, unhappy relationship we had. I don't know what else to do. I was nice with my rejection. I was rude now. I just want to scream in his face to get a frickin' life. On top of that, while I had a newborn, he had women harass me, told them I'm crazy, and so in love with him, and he never wanted me, told his girlfriend at the time he wished I committed. Went to my siblings and mom to seem like the victim. They all laughed at him and blocked him. I honestly thought we had gotten over the past and was getting along for our son, but now he thinks I'm wife material. I should date a dude that still lives with his mom and doesn't even own his own car. While I worked and saved to buy my dream car, while my finance and I moved into our dream home, I'm gonna assume they mean fiancé. Traveling as a family, my son calls him daddy as of recently. Has anyone dealt with this? Not having his biological dad would not be the reason the kid ends up in prison. This could get violent. Call the police, make a report, call a lawyer, restraining order, etc. Record every contact. If he breaks the order, call the cops. It's likely to take prison to get him to realize it's over. Protect yourself. Men like that never mature. Yeah, yikes. Woof! Oh! This guy is clearly delusional. Has not changed, as he has clearly shown that he is still a very toxic, manipulative, annoying, icky, degenerative, horrible human being. I know that, like, for the sake of the child, a lot of people want to try and get along with the other parent, and they want to try and have some type of stable relationship for the sake of the child, and that makes sense, but this guy does not seem safe for anyone involved, much less the child. This guy, from the straight up beginning, was an a-hole, and was just a glaringly horrible person. All the things that were mentioned in the story, he was awful, cheated, he was abusive, and she had to leave when she was 2 months pregnant. And she had to overcome so much herself, and then she met someone else. And like, this guy thinks he has a shot. It shows a level of delusional that is really, frankly, uncomfortable to read about, and I can't even imagine living it. Much less, I don't know that I would want someone like that, not only in my life, but in my child's life, because you don't know what they're capable of when it comes to the kid, right? They could use the kid against you in some fashion, in some way. They could be abusive, as much as I hate to say that, to the kid. So it's like, you don't really know how a situation like this will shake out. And yeah, this guy just seems like he hasn't changed or grown up at all, and that he's still the abusive a-hole he was when all of this started. Like, he's obsessive, and thinks that he still has a shot with the original poster. So, tough questions to ask yourself, but is that someone you want involved in your life? But like I say every time, that's just my take on it. Maybe you have a different one. Anyways, on to the next one. So we have now reached that time of the night where we read one less crazy one and call it there. So everyone, what I want you to do is get all settled in, cozy on up, and let's just dive right in with our final post. I, 55 female, didn't take my daughter, 19 female, to the doctor, and now she claims to have multiple sclerosis. My daughter and I are estranged due to issues unrelated to the title. When she was growing up, she was a nightmare child, and constantly lied about things for attention and sympathy. I tried my best and did what I could, but with all the lying and mood swings, I just couldn't be the parent she needed, evidently. A common theme when she was growing up was that parts of her body would go numb. It would come with no rhyme or reason and disappear just as magically, so I, of course, just wrote it off. She would claim to get random pains, then all of a sudden she'd be right as rain. You can understand why I had a hard time believing it was anything more than attention-seeking. Another issue was her supposed tiredness and depression. To say she was lazy would be an understatement. So I chalked the tiredness up to the fact that she couldn't be arsed to be a normal human being. She had no reason to be depressed either, given how spoiled she was. And whose fault would that be? Ha! Well, it turns out I was wrong, and recently found out through the grapevine that she was apparently diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called multiple sclerosis. I also found out that she's been slandering me as a result of this. She's claiming that I prevented her from seeing a doctor about all of the issues she's apparently been having for almost a decade now, and I'm a horrible mother for doing so. In my mind, if it was really that bad, she would have demanded I take her. But she always got over it, which doesn't seem like any disease I've seen, so I personally don't believe it. But she has apparently proven it to everyone we have in common, using various hospital correspondence. She is already making me look like a horrible person by telling people I won't take her to the doctor, which is bad enough, but if I try to prove her diagnosis wrong, it would backfire and make me look even worse. What do I do? Realize that you are the bad parent. Nothing you can do, your lack of care for your child, caused them extreme bodily harm. Be thankful all she is doing is talking and not pressing legal charges. I would have. How can she press charges when I've done nothing wrong? She lied all the time. How is that my fault? Maybe apologize, since she has proof that she is indeed ill and you never believed her when she would ask you to take her to the doctor. In my opinion, apologizing to her and agreeing that you were wrong is the best bet. I haven't seen the proof myself, just been told it exists. Things like that are easily faked. OP needs to be final destinationed. If it was that bad, she would have demanded I take her to the doctor. Sorry, who is the responsible adult in this situation? My daughter and I are estranged due to issues unrelated to the title. No, I don't think so. Yeah, that's pretty horrible. I Let me share with you what MS is in case you're wondering. I wouldn't leave you hanging. Multiple sclerosis is a disease that causes breakdown of the protective covering of the nerves. Multiple sclerosis can cause numbness, weakness, trouble walking, vision changes, and other symptoms. It's also known as MS. It attacks your protective sheath that covers nerve fibers known as myelin, and that interrupts communication between the brain and the rest of the body. Eventually, the disease can cause permanent damage of the nerve fibers. So I'm gonna be talking as a person who is chronically ill. I do not have MS, thankfully, because MS is a pretty horrible disease. From my knowledge, from my understanding, from my research of it, it's not a good disease. Not that there's any good disease, but there are some that are far worse than others. A lot of MS symptoms can kind of pop up pretty early on before you are necessarily within the diagnostic criteria. So the fact that she was complaining of things that are very much real symptoms of MS, from the numbness to the exhaustion to depression even, because, chronic illnesses tend to counteract your life and your quality of life. A lot of autoimmune conditions make themselves known before it's technically findable within your body. So I can't imagine dealing with symptoms of something for 10 years and the person who is kind of responsible for your well-being is like, I think you're lying. They just assume everything you're telling them is false. Now, my issue with saying that she was a nightmare child and constantly lied about things for attention and sympathy, so if she's been having symptoms for over a decade, she would have started having issues at around 9 years old, which would mean that a good chunk of those formative years, the years you really remember as you're aging and growing up, you would be suffering from symptoms of this disease. And the one person in your life, because I don't see a father being mentioned, the one person in your life, the one person you're supposed to be able to trust, you come to and you're like, hey, I'm having symptoms of this, and they tell you, no, you're lying, you want attention, you want sympathy, you're a nightmare child. And it's even shown here throughout this post that this mother doesn't believe her at all. Now, why someone would come up with a fake diagnosis for MS, that's kind of a crazy thing to claim to pretend to have. The thing is, people who are chronically ill will often recognize the common theme of, people around you, especially family, not being very supportive / not believing you about the severity of what you're experiencing. That's the thing about chronic condition is that until a person actually experiences what chronic, even just something like chronic fatigue feels like, they're not going to understand that it's not, I didn't sleep enough, so I feel a little unrest. There is a level to these symptoms that go above and beyond what your average person is experiencing. So trying to get people who are very low on empathy or don't believe you about these symptoms, it's very difficult to get them to understand just how insanely awful you feel. A decade of being left untreated and unchecked, I don't know what issues that has left the daughter with, but you've pretty much lost your kid by this point because she's had a very severe autoimmune condition that you never believed her on, and even now you're turning to Reddit for help and you're like, well, I don't really believe her, but what do I do? Nothing. The point is lost. The point is moot. You lost your child. And again, I think a lot of my frustration is coming out through the perspective of someone who's chronically ill. So many people will come up to you and say to your face, have you tried this? Have you tried essential oils? Have you tried drinking more coffee? Have you tried sleeping in more? Have you tried sleeping less? People will give you some of the worst suggestions you've ever heard in your life, and then they will also try and make you feel like you're insane, or they'll gaslight you and be like, you're not actually experiencing that, because if it was really that bad, you wouldn't be able to do XYZ. You wouldn't be feeling fine later. I understand the daughter not wanting to be involved with a parent like that, because that honestly just makes you feel more sick. Having the stress of having to deal with disbelief from those around you, nah. So that's where we're gonna wrap it up for the night. So if you want to check out the original posts, I will link down to them below if I am able to track them down. A lot of the time, posts like these just end up deleted or removed eventually, so sometimes you can find them, sometimes you can't. And I will also link down to the 2 accounts we used tonight on Instagram to help us with these amazing stories. Let me ask you this though, do you have any crazy family stories of your own? Any crazy family drama? I think we all do. So thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully you all enjoyed, and hopefully I will see you all here next time.